Welcome back to another episode of Blood and Guts. This is Stephen Cohen. I am a general and colon and rectal surgeon. This is a podcast, surgical expert breakdown, and I'm very excited and honored today to have a distinguished surgeon who I think you're going to find very interesting. So, this is a surgeon who years ago created an innovative uh, an interactive forum for medical legal cases. And it's very different from what's currently out there in order to connect medical experts, both for plaintiff and defense, to talk to attorneys. So thank you, doctor, for being here with us today.
Hey, Steve, it's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
So let's start with really the first question, because this kind of question that I get asked is, why do you do medical malpractice work, and how did you get started in this field?
Well, I'll be honest. I started because I was in a financial crunch many years ago. I had no idea at all about the medical legal field, and at the time I had started with my first academic appointment, and I loved the job. I really did. But it wasn't paid very well. And so I went to my chairman and I told him, listen, I truly love my job and I wish I could stay here, this institution, but this is my situation. I need to make extra money. I'm gonna look somewhere else. And he told me, well, you don't have to do that. Don't you worry. I do a lot of medical legal reviews, and I get more requests than I can handle. I'm happy to pass some of those cases to you.
Wow.
And I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I had no idea that this even existed.
Right.
But so he connected me to a number of lawyers, and I started to review case, and I really enjoyed it because I was like being paid to learn from someone else's mistakes most of the time.
Right.
and
Right.
and so the initial 1 or 2 years, this side business helped me tremendously to overcome my situation, and then I continued because I thought it was a good way to learn. The way I looked at it was I'm being paid to learn and to look at cases, not dissimilar to what you do at your institution for
Right.
peer review. So I thought it was a good deal.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point because we do peer review. Peer review, for those listeners that don't know, is that most complications, and there's a list of things that we review, are reviewed internally in the hospital. And a peer review committee is made up of nurses and doctors and some social workers, but other ancillary support staff, all different specialties, medicine, surgery, radiology, whatever, to review cases to see, you know, did the team or provider meet the standard of care? And sometimes it's not really punitive. It's not putting blame. It's trying to find maybe there were system issues in the hospital that could be improved to better outcomes for the patients.
That's correct. And the way I see it is about quality control. And interestingly enough, I'm originally not from the US, and sometimes my peers from Europe ask me, well, how do you deal with the legal malpractice in the US? I mean, it's so expensive and must be so frightening. And to me, it's part of what makes our system a great system. Well, I mean, can be improved, of course, but I
Mhm.
don't see the threat of a medical legal suit necessarily bad, because I think it does keep many of us in check. And I when I make any clinical decision, I'll be honest, I always think about what can be the legal side of my
Right.
decisions. And that's another way in which doing medical legal review has helped me tremendously in my practice. I think ultimately it benefits the patients.
Yeah, it's very interesting you say that because my first light bulb that went off in my brain was during a trial when the surgeon's operative note was blown up to 30 by 40, and every word was gone over by the plaintiff attorney. And I was on the defense side. But it was, I mean, it's just how you dictate what you say, what are the key indicators. And I guess for the people that are listening, we're trained to do that, but as the years go on, you tend to maybe not put in some of those key things that may prevent a medical legal claim, right? So those things are very important. And I look at it the same way when I'm either interacting or documenting or treating or making a decision. I put my thought process there. Yes, I thought of this. This is what I'm doing. Yes, I thought, and that helps for sure.
Yeah, same. That, doing reviews has certainly changed the way I practice, and I think in a better way.
So you started a company called Kalivar, and I want to dive into it a little bit about number one, what is Kalivar and why and how you came up with this?
Well, let me start from where I came up with this from. Like, what was the
The impetus.
light bulb that went on?
Yeah,
So I had been doing, at that point, I've been doing medical legal reviews for a few years. And I thought that the entire system was not very efficient. Um, you know, eh, as an attorney, is looking at the case, but they don't know if there is anything there. They don't know the medical science, so they have to ask someone.
right.
And if they typically only ask one single doctor to give an opinion.
Correct.
And if that opinion is biased, the attorney, is going to lose a lot of money. He's going to lose, easily hundreds of thousands of dollars if the case goes to trial,
Right.
all because he made a decision to pursue a case based on a single opinion.
Right.
If you're a patient, it's not uncommon to ask at least two doctors nowadays, right? I mean, I have been a patient. I had an operation myself. I regretted I didn't get a second opinion.
Yep.
And I don't understand why attorneys wouldn't do that, because, the stakes are high. So that
Well,
was number
I
one.
think cost. The reason they don't get two opinions obviously is the a retention well, when you hire an expert, it's costly. It's anywhere from two to $5,000. And if they get more than one opinion, they're spending a lot of money.
True, but as we all know, sometimes the best way to save money is not necessarily not spending money. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's
uh,
true. Right.
so I think in many cases, an initial, investment may go a long way to save you money in the long term. The other part that I didn't like about uh, doing medical legal reviews is that, for one reason or the other, I was mostly reviewing plaintiff cases. And this was not a personal decision. It was just the nature of the business. Once your name circulates into the plaintiff lawyers,
Right.
they tend to call you from that side.
Right.
Um, and I immediately realized there was a stigma from my peers
Correct.
against doctors who work for the plaintiff.
Correct.
And again, we can discuss whether that is right or wrong, but the fact is that's the way
It's
it
the
is.
fact. Correct.
So I tend not to disclose that I do medical legal work because I will hate to be in a situation where one of my peers is afraid to reach out to me, asking for help for a difficult case because he thinks I may have some connection with attorneys somehow, things are gonna leak. I mean, it, I think it's a ridiculous thought. I just don't want to be in this situation. And I know this because after I knew that my chairman was doing this type of work, I kind of, started to pick like little jokes from peers, or make sure Dr. D doesn't know about this, or I don't know how
Yeah.
he goes up, against his peers. It's just I didn't need that. So
Right.
those were the two thought that made me come up with Kalivar. So to go back to your first question, Kalivar is a platform that allows attorneys to screen cases for negligence and receive multiple opinions. This is no different from when an attorney calls you or emails you, hey, Steve, I have this case, this and this happened, what do you think? And most of the times, you're able to say over the phone, well, listen, this is a very unfortunate outcome, but, that's just unfortunate. There is no, you
Right.
don't
No
do anything
breach.
wrong here.
Right.
And so, it's the same. So attorneys can post a summary of the case on Kalivar, but instead of having just the opinion from Steve, now they get an opinion from 3, 4, 5 other physicians.
Yeah.
And so they get a more comprehensive view of the potential issues on the case.
So let me ask you a question. There's other third parties out there, and I'm not going to mention any names, but that if attorney reaches out to a third party, they charge they take my fee and they add 30%. Does Kalivar add any fees on top of the attorneys, or how does that work when the attorney initially posts it? Meaning if they get 3 opinions, are they paying 3 retainer fees, or how does that work?
So we have this fee schedule that is sort of like evolving over the years, but as of now, we ask for $400 for at least 2 opinions. Most of the time you get more opinions. It's like, it's like on, you post a comment on, you put something on Facebook,
Right.
and
You get a lot of
people
comments.
start comments saying,
Right.
or we ask $500 for at least 3 opinions. And if the attorney doesn't get those opinions, they get a refund.
Wow.
So that's how it works. And then, of course, if the attorney likes one of those opinions, or more than one of those experts, and they want to retain them, then we charge a small fee for the introduction, and then we're out of there.
Meaning, so once Kalivar is out of there, then it's up between the attorney and the expert.
That's correct. So the expert will work with the attorney using their own fee schedule, and
Perfect.
we don't follow this interaction. We don't mark up the expert fees like many other companies do.
How did you come up with this idea? Did you just think about it? Because there's really nothing like it out there, right? Either the attorney calls me directly and I'm charging my retainer fee. And as you know, and I say this all the time, about 30 to 40% of the time when a plaintiff attorney calls me and I get my retainer fee, that's every other expert does, and I review the case, about 30 to 40% of the time, I tell them there was no breach in the standard of care. It may have been a bad outcome, but outcome is irrelevant in standard of care, meaning I can do everything right and I can still have a bad outcome.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so how did you come up with this?
Well, that was the other part of it. At some point, and I'll be honest, right now, in the last few years, for a number of reasons, I haven't been doing that many medical legal reviews myself. But at some point, I was doing many of them. And as a result,
Right.
I will also get phone calls and emails all the times. And, you review a summary, it takes you 15 minutes of your time, then you call the
Right.
reviewer, overall, it's like 20 minutes of your time that have gone. And as you know, most of the times, again, the doctor has done nothing wrong.
Right.
So you say, Mr. So-and-so, this case is unfortunate, but I will discourage you from moving forward because I promise you there is nothing there. And the attorney will say, okay, well, that's great. Well, I'll call you next time I have a case that I think
Right.
you worth your time.
Right.
So, but at the end of the day, if you sum all of those 15, 20 minutes that you have spent, I mean, it's hours of your time, of your professional time, for
Right.
which you don't get compensated. So a Kalivar sort of, provides a little solution for physicians because they are paid a small amount, currently $120, but they are paid a small amount for their post. And as we know, depending on your specialty, expert fees are anywhere currently between 400 and 1,500 an hour. On average, probably is around 600. So $120 for 15 minutes of your time, I think it's reasonable. And it's another way for me to be fair to doctors who decide to work as expert witness.
So let me ask you another question though. So the attorney is allowed to upload information. Do the doctors know if this is plaintiff or defense?
They do not. So we do that specifically to minimize bias. We just
That's
present a
important.
case,
Yeah.
and we don't want the doctor to know, um, what side the attorney is representing. We also don't disclose where specifically the case was located. I mean, we do disclose the state.
Okay.
There are, legal reasons behind it, like, laws and regulations are different, so that may have
Right.
relevance. But we try to minimize bias in any possible ways. And, I have had cases where, expert found themselves, giving opinions on, neighbors, and then they recuse themselves when they were, offered to be expert witness for a formal review of those cases. And at that point, the attorney had to disclose, oh, well, I'm representing the plaintiff, and this is a case where Dr. X was involved, and then the expert will say, well, that's too bad because I live 5 blocks away from Dr. X, so I'm not
Right.
going to take this.
Right.
So, but again, it's just a way for us to keep opinions honest.
Well, I think that's important because as you know, and you've been through this too, when you get, when you review a case for a plaintiff attorney and you clearly demonstrate or agree that it was a breach in the standard of care, the other side always will complain that you had hindsight bias. And you only because you came up with that conclusion because you knew the outcome. So that's a great benefit to Kalivar because, I mean, I guess, and I don't know if this has ever happened to an expert witness, but if it ever goes to depth, once you get hired through Kalivar, because you gave a completely honest opinion, completely unbiased, you didn't know was plaintiff or defense. Yeah, you knew the outcome. There's no expert in the world, plaintiff or defense, that doesn't know the outcome with the case because that's why the case gets filed. So again, I've been accused of hindsight bias from the plaintiff attorney and from a defense attorney. How could that possibly be? Right. So I think that's important though. And I wonder if it's happened with experts that when you get to deposition, you can say, look, I was in, because I get asked all the time, when did you first get notified? How did they notify you? Well, sometimes I don't remember, right? I don't know if they called me or they emailed me. I have no idea. But it's interesting that it might give some credence to the fact that, well, I got this case through Kalivar. I had no idea whether this is plaintiff or defense, and I just gave my honest opinion, which I'm doing now for you, right? So that's interesting.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think this goes also in favor of the attorneys because, if you are representing the plaintiff, I can see how an expert may have an interest in reviewing the case and being paid for the review, just to say at the end of the review, well, there was really nothing here, right? Because
Right,
if
right.
so, you want to be retained for the review, but again, so we try to keep it as honest as possible.
So it's a low cost upfront for the attorneys, much less than they're having to pay an initial retainer. they, number one. Number two, and I just want to make sure I get the premise. Number two, they get more than one opinion for less cost than they would for just one opinion. And the reviewers in their specialty, if it's a surgery case, it's surgeons. If it's a medical case, it's medical doctors. Um, are blinded. They don't know if it's plaintiff or defense, and they get an honest opinion. What kind of things do the attorney post? I mean, just so for the listeners, do they post the entire case? Are they able to post X-rays? How much information can they give on the Kalivar platform?
So we limit the amount of words that can be used. We are trying to make those summary shorter and shorter. It's a fine balance. I mean,
Yeah,
you want to provide the relevant information. Of course, the attorneys don't always know what the relevant information is.
right,
So
right.
we also have a tool that allows experts to ask specific questions about that case before the case is closed for comment. So if
Oh,
you
that's
read
good.
the summary and you're like, well, I would really need to know whether the CAT scan read this as perforated or uncomplicated appendicitis, then you can, if
Right,
that information is not in the summary, you can ask the attorney that specific question, and the attorney can reply. Again, this is all anonymous, and the question and answers are published below the summary. So that's one way to provide more
that's good.
information. And yes, attorneys can also post pictures, say, a picture of an infected incision, or X-rays, or even, short videos, so you can have the relevant
Wow,
portion of a CAT scan posted. Sometimes they post even a few pages of records, like an operative report, for instance, just to stay in the surgical field. So they have, but we try to minimize the amount of data that is published to keep it fair to the
right,
physicians. We want to make this, brief and short. We don't want experts to spend too much time for something that's
right,
not going to be a definitive opinion. This is just a preliminary comment on whether or not there may be something there. It's again, this is the same level of a brief email or a phone call from an attorney asking you to screen for a case. Is it
yeah. It
even
almost
more to
sounds
get
like a curbside consult. Look, I got
that's
it's like a high level, 30,000 foot level of this is how the patient presented. This was the complication. These are the facts that I know. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever thought about, and I'm just thinking about it now, how AI is going to help either summarize or condense or to help attorneys figure out? And is that
yes.
something that, yeah, how do you see that? How do you see AI coming in together with Kalivar to help this situation?
Well, I haven't thought about summarizing the summaries necessarily. I'm assuming that most attorneys at this point are using ChatGPT to review their script. Um, if not, it's certainly a good idea. The role of AI in the medical legal business, and by the way, we are publishing a number of articles in our blog specifically about this topic.
Oh,
Um,
good.
and there is certainly some use, obviously, but ultimately, will you have an AI that can screen cases for an attorney, for instance? Maybe in the future. I think as of now, no. The same way you wouldn't trust an AI to make a diagnosis and suggest a treatment, you probably wouldn't trust an AI to tell you whether or not there is negligence in a case and whether there was causation or not, because those are the two elements that you need when you do a review.
Right.
You need to tell the attorney, well, there was negligence, and you have to tell the attorney, yes, there was or there wasn't causation. Those are the two elements that are most important for the attorneys. So same as in, we are at the point where AI can, do a lot of stuff in the medical field and are certainly useful. But as of today, they still need to be monitored. So I use AI. I ask questions to AI. My academic institution does provide a number of AI tools available to us, and they're
Wow.
very helpful in our practice, but they have to be supervised. Radiologists are using AI to screen CAT scans for PE. That's at this point, the default at our institution, and has helped tremendously. But what the AI does is flag a case for the radiologist to review. So the AI will
I
say,
got it.
hey, we think this patient has a PE, you may want to look at it, and then the radiologist will review and confirm. And most of the time, the AI is right, but again, that's
Right.
they can independently provide diagnosis or suggest treatment. And I think we are in the same place for medical legal reviews.
Yeah, I have heard of companies because I did speak with an attorney a few months ago that went to an AI conference, and he's a plaintiff attorney. That there is um, current currently on the market, but it's very costly, obviously, where they can upload 20,000 pages of medical records if somebody has been in the hospital for 3 months, and it'll spit out a chronology. It'll, you can say, "Give me all the vital signs this time." So I think it's coming
Oh
that
yeah,
it's going to help them, and it may help medical reviewers rather than because you like me, if I get 20,000 pages of records, I got to go through every page.
absolutely. I mean, I spend a lot of time basically extrapolating data
Yes.
from the chart, and I have my system with my Excel spreadsheet, which
Yep.
the first column is the date, the second column is the
Yep.
time, and then I
Yep.
have a reference to the page of the PDF, so I can find that page quickly if I need to
Right.
review. So that will be, I mean, that's happening already. I mean,
Right.
that's exactly what we talked about in I think the last installment of our blog. It's there. So, but again, it's a tool. It's not something that as of today can replace an expert in any way.
Yeah, no, I agree. So as a final question, and for the listeners, I'll put in the show notes how to get on to Kalivar. It's a website, kalivar.com. That's easy. But as a final question, right now, Kalivar is only for medical legal experts. But as you know, doctors are not the only ones that are needed in the expert witness field, right? There's a lot of other things that happen where you need expert witness. Do you see Calivar expanding in any way to the other fields other than medical legal?
Yes. So we already accept opinions, not just from doctors, but also from nurses, optometrists, physical therapists, psychologists, perfusionists. I mean, anyone with an MPI number is basically a potential medical expert witness, in our opinion. And even if they don't have an MPI number, like some nurses, for instance, most of the nurses. But yes, in the future, we will definitely expand on other fields, engineering, accounting, intellectual property, finances, you name it.
Yeah, because I see the same concept in all the other specialties, right? You still need to get an expert witness. You need to hire, somebody that knows engineering for whatever happens, or, that type of thing. So I definitely see how this concept of a multiple opinions, low cost, blinded, you don't know what side it's on, just giving honest opinions will grow and expand in the future.
That's what we hope.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Doctor, for being with us today. Blood and guts, we appreciate it. Thank you all so much.
It was a pleasure. Thanks, Steve.